This is just the best. I think you're going to like this one. For all of the attacks on the infamous Trump-Russia dossier by Christopher Steele, Steele has now come out on top in a libel case against him in court. Trump claimed the entire dossier was fake. His defenders claimed it was just made up lies. And it has now been upheld as at least not libelous or defamatory in a court of law. Christopher Steele is a former MI6 officer, the UK's intelligence service, and he won a case in the United States against 3 Russian oligarchs who sued him because the oligarchs said the stuff that Christopher Steele put in the Trump-Russia dossier about them, about us, they said, was untrue, it's defamatory, it's libelous. And the court decided that, no, that's not the case. Christopher Steele said that the case should be thrown out, and a judge agreed. The judge didn't decide, are the contents accurate line by line? Are they true or untrue? But what the judge did decide was that the document, the Steele dossier, was not deliberately inaccurate, which is the standard that's applied to what Steele put in it when you're trying to figure out whether it's defamatory or libelous. So this tells us that as far as a judge is concerned, whether or not every claim in the dossier is true, it's not a dossier put together with unsourced, knowingly false material like Christopher Steele. It contains claims of varying specificity. You could argue it contains claims of varying accuracy because it's a report of what Steele's sources told him, but it was put together in a way that a court decided is simply not defamatory. Now, the Russian oligarchs aren't pleased. They said they would, quote, almost certainly appeal the court's decision. It's not hugely likely that it would go a different way on appeal, and Steele is still up against libel charges in the UK. There's another Russian named Alexei Gubarev who's named in the dossier, and he's going to have to deal with that in the UK. But this is yet another good result, I would say, for the dossier. Now, Trumpists will hear me and they'll say, David, this doesn't prove the accuracy of anything in the dossier. And that's true. I'm not trying to hide that. Much of the dossier has been separately corroborated. But what this decision does mean is that the allegations about the Russians who sued Steele are beyond libel. It's a win for the legitimacy of elements of the dossier as genuine reports of what people told Steele. And I feel like that's what's missing from the conversation, Pat. People say Steele made the stuff up, or Steele's not trustworthy, or he concocted this stuff or not, and we need to punish Steele for making things up. Steele never claimed that these were his assertions. What Christopher Steele did is he gathered information from sources about Donald Trump, who was orchestrating that and who wanted the document put together. People like to debate that. He was not just writing stuff down. He was documenting the claims made about Donald Trump. It was not a document where Steele purported to adjudicate what was true and what wasn't true. And hopefully that gets figured out as cases are decided that they are not defamatory on that basis.
Yeah, I feel like the claims made by Steele seemed just so outrageous when they were first released.
Yeah.
Because, you know, this was their first time looking at these allegations. And people, that just kind of stuck with people, right? That there's no way that the Trump PP tape exists and that all of the Trump associates were this involved in Russia.
Yeah.
And you know, it's kind of hard to come back from that in a way.
And when we actually look at the reality that more and more elements of the dossier have been independently corroborated over time, we now have Michael Cohen, who supposedly had nothing to do with anything. He has now pled guilty to 8 counts, although not directly related to the contents of the dossier. But it's all now fitting together. So it's really important that you not fall for Trumpists saying it's meaningless because it doesn't prove the truth of the claims in the dossier. The story is that the people that were claiming that what Steele wrote about them was defamatory were able to present no evidence that the contents were untrue, and certainly not that the contents were defamatory, and the judge threw the case out. So it's definitely not phony. It's definitely not been discredited as, what was it that Carter Page called it on the show? The dodgy dossier.
The dodgy dossier.
What we have is a list of assertions, more of which have been independently corroborated now than at any previous time. And I think it would actually be very interesting to go back to the dossier and go through it point by point now, pulling out the parts that have been separately corroborated. At this point, it's quite a few, and that might actually be useful for the audience to see us do. And maybe we will do that sometime soon.